Hello, my name is Jacques Duplessis. I teach at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. I'd like to speak with you about less commonly taught languages. And if you're not from a less commonly taught languages, this discussion will definitely still be of value because my focus is on the reasons for exploring online education. I've been involved with foreign language teaching since the mid-80s. And teaching a less commonly taught language, I had very little in resources available to me. It was difficult before the days of the internet to get material from far away. And so I relied on developing a lot of things myself. I'm very grateful for that experience. It gave me such a wonderful, deep insight into how to teach and learn languages. I would develop materials, immediately apply it, and see the results. It was kind of a lab that I was living over and over as I worked with groups and developed my insights into foreign language teaching and learning. So as we look at today, where we stand today and where we're going in the future, I think it's very important to not just say, if I've got a job and my job is safe, I'm fine. I want to invite you to take a bigger look at this environment. So we've got roughly 7,000 languages on the earth today, and they're disappearing fast. Languages going extinct is happening at an alarming rate, and that language preservation is maybe another topic, not part of this, yet there's an important segue into this. So you go to any university, the university, the place that exposes you to the world of learning. And how many languages can you learn? Well, we've got a very limited menu, and it seems to stay that way with very little change. So of 7,000 languages, how many thousand are we able to access? Well, no, it's not 1,000. Well, how many hundreds then? No, we don't measure it in hundreds. Can we measure it in tens? Not quite. Maybe 10. And so we see that it ranges from maybe between 5 and 20 languages, depending on where you go, that you have access to. Is this really the best model we can offer? So, having done a lot of materials myself, and at the end of this presentation, I'll show you my materials that you can kind of see a template for how I've approached it. It's not to say that you will do it the same way, but I would like to invite you to consider taking it more seriously than waiting for some big company to bring out the materials and offer you the access and the keys to their kingdom, and at their price you can then do what they do. And obviously you already know they only do things that are profitable to them. So in a case like myself, someone who teaches Afrikaans, there's not going to be that golden way into access to materials. In fact, very few African languages will ever get that. The closest we might come to it is Arabic. So where do we go with these flyover languages, if I can use that term? I've developed an environment, and I call it a language infrastructure that needs to be in place. Without a sound infrastructure, it's very difficult to operate in this environment. So since I'm going to show you the infrastructure at the end, I'm going to just build on that in my logic as I go forward for us to consider this. A major obstacle today is that the administrative mindset is still ivory tower centric. In other words, at our university, we offer everything, and our students come here to take our courses, so it's very hour-centric. To have an environment in which you can teach a less commonly taught language to several universities is a very simple and exciting concept. Think of it this way. You've got a consortium of universities that all belong to a foreign language or less commonly taught language consortium. Foreign languages are offered online through this consortium if we use that model. The languages then go on the books of all these universities. A new student shows up. they are studying, I'm going to use a vignette here, so I'm interested in fashion design. I just got into it, and I've been to Indonesia a few times, and I'm really impressed with what's happening there. And I'm now partnering with some entrepreneurs, and when I'm done with my degree, we want to set up shop in Indonesia. So I want to study Indonesian. And the question is, they don't offer it at my university. Well, if we have this consortium idea, we can expand the list of languages we can offer far beyond what is currently offered in the US. I say so, in other words, what I'm saying is not like what is offered in the US somewhere then can reach you. I honestly believe it will go beyond that, that this model will create the opportunity to then offer even languages that we don't offer now, because we realize the scale of the economy in this new environment. Yes, maybe we will get 10 students across 50 or 100 or 200 universities that would be interested. And that makes it worth it to have an instructor, even an adjunct instructor, take this on. In fact, the adjunct instructor does not even have to live in the US. So it really changes the game of how we approach this language teaching concept. You do not need all the expertise in-house. So you've got receiver universities and then sender universities. For a sender university, if we stay with Indonesian, the blessing is you've got an economically viable proposition. So we can afford to pay this instructor to do this. The instructor is motivated to stay. We're building capacity. In fact, even if we get a second and a third class, so we might have 3 units of 101 being offered, that keeps that instructor busy and really makes this a viable environment. So you can see where the receiver institution is just grateful that this is possible. They now can expand their expertise in that region of the world related to business, to political science, to geography, and so forth. In other words, that interdisciplinary value is added to the university. To the receiver institution, let's say a small college or university somewhere remote that normally would offer 3 or 4 languages at most, now find that there's a student that's really interested in their program in fashion design, but says, you know, I'm really interested in Indonesian. They can smile and say, we're so glad you came, please sit down. Of course we offer Indonesian. You do? Yes, of course we do. Isn't that delightful? So the student becomes part of this community even though studying at a very small institution. So there's a rich blessing that goes both ways to receiver and sender institutions. It's not that we encroach on each other's turf. Indeed, we bless each other with expanding, in every case, our own capacity in what we offer and what in the value proposition we offer our students. So the real challenge here is to get this environment set up because of administration that needs to clear many hurdles. And often I found, sadly to say, that in administration it's not a student-centric approach they take. They serve their own needs and they assume that is the way to go. So as an administrator, you come to me and you say, I'm interested in Indonesian, can you help me? An ideal way would be, let me set up a path by which this student can take Indonesian and other students to follow will then have it easy. So if I can then sign an agreement with another university that offers Indonesian and we form this kind of consortium as I mentioned, wonderful. The student is immediately helped and it's part of the bigger plan. If I do not have a student-centric approach, I might most likely say, well, you know what? Go look around on the web. In other words, I'm pushing it onto you. I'm not going to do it for you. You're going to do it yourself. See what you can find out there, and then we can just arrange for a transfer of credit. So go take their course and transfer credit. I've seen that model fail simply because of cost. You go to another institution and say, oh, you're out of state, and this, that. Well, it's going to cost you $3,000, $4,000 for this class. At that point you say, well, thank you, but no thank you. So we've not gained anything. And students have to redo the same effort every time they're interested in something. Administration does not serve those needs. They cover to the majority already happy with what we offer. This is a university. We need to think wide and we need to expand it. Keep in mind, with 7,000 languages, we offer about 10 or less. That's not serving our students. The virtual world that we've got available to us now allows us to go far wider in what we offer. So it's time that we really consider that and see how can we build these communities. In my final note before I switch to my presentation of the site that I've developed, I have noticed something sad though, and I'm willing to stand by it for now. An asynchronous online class for foreign language learning for your traditional student is really not a success model. I have tried that. I've not succeeded. I've been tenacious and thought I can make this work and reworked the content and redesigned it as efficiently as I could with no real change in the result. And I have discovered sadly that it's not what I offer, but who you've got as a student. That sense of self-discipline to stick to it and to drive themselves to commit to it, it's kind of like kids doing their piano practice. Many do not do well there, and it takes extra effort to motivate kids to do their piano practice. Likewise, this is the same model, and you cannot cram it at the end. You've got to put in your due diligence on a daily basis to succeed with this, and that's not possible. So I see this as a blended or a synchronous online method that would deliver the results we're after. And as this progresses, I think you can always tweak a bit to see, based on the dynamics that you have, how you can maintain that commitment of students on a frequent and daily basis. That's the key piece here. It's not how glitzy your program is and how cool this and that and the other is and how your interface design is so much superior to the competition and so forth. Those things matter and it's important, but that's not the first and most important priority. So let's switch over and take a look at the site that I've developed, and I'd love to show you the design that I've followed and the logic and why it's such a beautiful foundation for online language teaching. If you search Learn Afrikaans online, you'll notice the site that I've developed, openlanguages.net, is number 3. This is now on Google. If you were to go to Bing, you'll find also that it pops up on the first page. Here you go, openlanguages.net. So I want to go into the site and give you a quick feel of the logic that I followed and why it is beneficial to this environment. First thing you'll notice is the pull down menu at the top. So I'll ignore general for a moment and we'll focus on these other ones. I've got a pronunciation section that has a specific focus and a holistic focus. So really centering on that skill to develop pronunciation, and there you go. Then there's a vocabulary section, also divided up in nice logical chunks, grammar-related vocabulary, then basics, common words that you need to know. So kind of a progression as you go along, but covering all the key topics that you need to do. And so some of it goes, it's quite extensive, like the people one you can see here is quite extensive. We'll touch on that in a moment. The grammar section is really the jewel to this environment for me. I've taken many years to reflect on Afrikaans grammar. And instead of just shoveling up what everybody else has been shoveling up, I've decided to reinvent this environment where necessary and where possible. And I've come up with a very nice generative model that I'll show you in a minute of how the learner can see the big picture of grammar and see where you are, what you know and what you don't know, and what you need to know. Those are very important questions that we often don't address well. We just simply say, we're going to learn this today. How does that fit in the big picture? Just relax and do as I tell you, you'll be fine. That's not acceptable to me. Then culture, wonderful piece. I've got things about Afrikaans. I've got lots of things in Afrikaans. Fables, music, poets, short stories, readings, sayings. I've got a whole music encyclopedia in Afrikaans on here. graciously donated by another developer. Then we've got history, politics, food, and so forth and so forth. This site will always improve and expand. And then a key thing. This button should maybe be at the very beginning, but I've got it at the end. And that is the applied environment, task lists of things you need to know, beginner topics, intermediary topics, listening, writing, bilingual weave, story webs, and so forth. The communication is really the heart of it. And so developing this site in having very meaningful accomplishments that you strive towards, and then hooking that into your vocabulary and your grammar and so forth as the need is there for you to improve on those areas is really important. So now I'm going to go back to the beginning to the general section. With general section, you'll notice there I've got very common predictable pieces here, like a mission statement, an introduction to the language itself, who's who in teaching Afrikaans abroad. That's kind of a fun site. Some announcements about the site that I put up from time to time. And then some information if you want to learn the language, or if you know some of the language and you want to get tested out, where do you go, what do you do? Orient you, and it's mainly to the US in this context. Then here comes the key piece, the curriculum. I'm going to touch in depth on the curriculum, so because I want to focus on that, I want to just wrap up this whole thing and then we'll go back to the curriculum. So I've got valuable links to many things in the language, specific things for students at UNISA, the University of South Africa. Then a link to other languages that are being developed. For example, I'm working on Korean right now, so links to other languages. Something about the author. If for those who know Afrikaans and want to volunteer, a page for them. There's a search and a sitemap and a way to contact the webmaster. Now back to that curriculum that I promised you. So here's the cool thing about this site. This is a learning environment. It's not a prescriptive textbook. A regular textbook is basically, let me paraphrase something as if I were to develop a regular textbook. I would say to you, well, you know what? Our expert committee sat down and we considered everything out there. And we have very expertly and made well-informed decisions, and we've chosen the best path through this language. So we assume that you are a beginner, and we now have developed a table of contents that would be ideal for you. So follow along and you'll do well. That's a regular textbook logic. What I've got here is a learning environment. I say, aha, you need pronunciation. Let me give you everything that there is in pronunciation and provide you with the fullness of this area. Yes, I can arrange things that you will follow the logic where things are easy to more difficult. That's definitely possible, but I give you a wholeness. Same with vocabulary, same with grammar, same with culture, and with communication. That has some sequence of beginning, intermediate, and advanced, but give you a lot. Now, here at the curriculum spot right here. So I develop a curriculum for the very first class at University Afrikaans 101. Suddenly, with the new model of Afrikaans being taught at many universities, we now need 10 teachers. And each of them want to do their own thing. This model is ideally suited for that. Each of them would develop their own curriculum, pop it in here. So as a student of so-and-so instructor, I could go to their curriculum and from there link to everything I need to do and know. As the 11th instructor, I might look at the other 10 people and I say, I like number 8, really, that's really exciting. But, you know, that culture thing, I've got a few extra things in there and I don't think this is important. I want to edit the culture section, but the other things I want to keep. So I create a fork from version 8, you could say. And so you don't need to develop your own from scratch. You've got other examples. You can make an assembly of other people's works. And so it's really a wonderful layer underneath the curriculum by which you draw from. Here's another thing that you commonly experience. So I'm the 11th teacher. I joined this environment and I noticed it's missing XYZ. Well, what do you do when you have a textbook and XYZ is missing? The developers say, yeah, we considered that, but we don't think there's other stuff more important. And as we balance things, that thing fell out. I'm sorry. And I know it for some would like it, but it's just not going to go. So tough. That's it. So you can develop supplemental materials or just live with it that XYZ will not be there. This model is different. With this model, we say, we don't have XYZ. Let's immediately insert it. Let's take a look. Where does it belong? Aha, we find the spot, we develop it, we add it. Why is that the case? I call it the menu versus the pantry model. When you sit in a restaurant, you get your menu, they tell you what you're going to eat. They've developed it, and you take your pick of what you want, or if you eat everything and go through a 3-course meal, here it comes. A pantry is a different kind of experience. A pantry is not a narrowly defined store. It has more spices than what you need for tonight's meal. So when you come tomorrow night and you cook Japanese last night, you can say Spanish tonight. You've got your spices. You can do Colombian the next night. And you can do Canadian or Russian or whatever. African. It's all there. And if it's not, what's the next thing you do? We better get it. Our pantry is not complete. So you immediately add what you don't need. It's part of the mission of a pantry, is to supply you with what you need, instead of saying we've already decided what you need and here you go in a very strict, confined list of what comes your way. So that's the whole excitement about a design like this. It's designed as a pantry. It's not prescriptive, trying to tell you what you're supposed to do. It's inclusive. If you discover something that's not there, you can add it. In fact, on any specific topic, you might say, yeah, you've covered the topic, but I'm not impressed. I want to redo this and do it better. You can have competing options of the same topic. And, I have not got this implemented, but this fits perfectly in the design. And then kind of like a ranking system where everybody could favor the new one, and I realize mine is not good anymore. And they could tell me exactly why. And I could either say, well, pull the plug on that one, the other one is better. Or I can say, now I get it. And I can leapfrog even beyond that and lure the people back, because now I got the vision as well. And in fact, not only did I get the vision, I really got the vision. And that's how growth happens. This is excitement. This is when foreign language development is really exciting. I've set the stage here in an open learning environment. A beautiful environment in that it's difficult to get materials. There's always all these costs that students have to deal with, and it just exponentially rises every year as you look at textbook costs. I've developed a model that just skips that. It's open, it's accessible to the world. That's just my philosophy, is wherever learning can be given, it should. And I gladly offer and sacrifice myself in that regard, instead of saying, how can I make money here? Given. With Afrikaans, you're not going to get far in that with that kind of thinking. So it helps to be where I am, to set the pace and to help others in this thinking. So this is why the curriculum then is so important, that you can see all the things I've developed for Afrikaans. I'll just show you one quickly. So I've got pronunciation, vocab, communication, and grammar, and an overview with certain tools available and so forth. And then we hit week 1, week 2, and you all got links to all the pieces that you need, and you really have a wonderful experience throughout that the students can follow along. I'm also working on tools where the students can log in and log their progression, where there's a chart that tells them where they've been, where they feel comfortable, and where they want to come back to, and what they haven't done and where they're supposed to be. So really, really a wonderful guide to help students through the process. I'll page through this once more with a little more detail of where it's pertinent. The specific focus is fairly clear for pronunciation. With holistic focus, I've been very fortunate in Afrikaans that many musicians have willed 2 or 3 songs that I could stream with their permission. So I've been blessed with wonderful musicians that have allowed me to stream. So if I just go to any piece here, I'll go to this piece by Anna Davel, Geheim. And so you see the text in Afrikaans and in English. You click there, and the song renders. So wonderful experience there. Vocabulary, I'm not going to touch on that. I've also got supplemental software. I'm working on software right now as well that you can, HTML5 based, that you can do drill practice online. The grammar piece that I mentioned, I want to just show you my chart. And so let me scroll up to show you this chart. So I've got a beginner and intermediate coloring here, but I say teach in Afrikaans here, pronouns really matters, to teach that first and to have that down. Then I've got the whole verb system, and once you learn the verb, you learn tenses. I've got progressive here because we don't have it, and English speakers always want to create it, and that's why I've got to unteach that notion with this. Then questions, negations, modals, and then when you go to an intermediate level, we deal with the perfect tense, conditional, and passive. And so, and then here are the other pieces that matter in Afrikaans, and this is our grammar. It's not 100%, but as far as speaking and being productive and being able to speak very well, this covers your bases. So very exciting to see this. And so you'll see the beginner, intermediate is the same thing, just with a focus on the green instead of on the yellow. And maybe I can show you the introduction as well. I've got a big picture introduction teaching you about types of terminology and concepts and so forth. Here's the terminology introduction. I developed a fairy tale. If you read the fairy tale, it explains the grammar. So having tested to see how well students like it, I've not done that well yet, but I'm keen to see that. And then I've got Q&A and some language comparisons to help people orient themselves to the grammar. And I've spoken about the culture and about the communication and the different things we've got available here. So this is my lengthy 15-minute introduction to this site. And so I encourage you, consider setting up your own site. Maybe I might mention, you'll notice this is not at the university website, just because others find that if it is at one university and someone from another university contributes, they feel, now I'm praising and glorifying your university, yet I'm not there and my university gets no credit for it. So I moved it to neutral space, and so I've got just many of these shared web space sites that for about $5 a month. This is hosted so that others can come here and enjoy. I hope this is a helpful introduction to the kind of work I'm doing to inspire you to get into development. Some of the tools that I really like Corel Draw. Of course, many use Illustrator and so forth. I like Corel Draw a lot in developing graphics and so forth with it. The vector graphics is what I'm really after to do a lot of development. I could maybe show you, let me see, with prepositions, what I've done there, thinking about it. So I've developed a little movie. I think this is it. Yeah, voorzetsels. And let's click on this.
Dit is my vriend Maatjie. Maatjie is bo die boks.
Okay, so you see how I created these little graphics.
Gaan
and where I use the graphics to show all
Maatjie
kinds of...
staan bo op die boks.
So, and I've got flashcards and all kinds of fun things. So I love vector graphics. Then I'm also using Camtasia, TechSmith's product, to capture like I'm doing right now. I find it a wonderful tool to present with, pull in your piece of movies, screen presentations, pop-up questions, do subtitles, and so forth. It's really a great tool to render what you're doing. So if any of you would like to chat with me about this, my email is jacques@uwm.edu, JACQUES@uwm.edu. I'd love to talk. Thank you.